It was a feature peculiar to the colonial wars of North America that the toils and dangers of the wilderness were to be encountered before the adverse hosts could meet. A wide and apparently impervious boundary of forests severed the possessions of the hostile provinces of France and England. Perhaps no district throughout the frontiers can furnish a livelier picture of the cruelty and fierceness of the warfare of those periods than the country between the headwaters of the Hudson and the adjacent lakes. It was in this scene of strife and bloodshed that the incidents we relate occurred, during the third year of the war which England and France waged for the possession of a country that neither was destined to retain. Toward the decline of a day in midsummer, intelligence was received at Fort Edward that Montcalm had been seen moving up the Champlain with an army numerous as the leaves on the trees. The news had been brought by an Indian runner, who also bore an urgent request from Munro, the commander of Fort William Henry on the shore of Lake George, for a speedy and powerful reinforcement. The simple array of the chosen band, 1,500 men, was soon completed. The deepest sounds of the retiring column had ceased to be borne on the breeze, and the latest straggler had already disappeared in pursuit. But there still remained the signs of another departure before a log cabin of unusual size, where some half-dozen horses were gathered. A young man, in the dress of an officer, conducted to their steeds two females who, as it was apparent from their dresses, were prepared to encounter the fatigues of a journey in the woods. One of them permitted glimpses of her dazzling complexion, fair golden hair, and bright blue eyes to be caught, as she artlessly suffered the morning air to blow aside the green veil which descended low from her beaver. The other concealed her charms from the gaze of the soldiery with a care that better fitted to the experience of 4 or 5 additional years. Turning their horses' heads, they proceeded at a slow amble, followed by their train. A slight exclamation escaped from the younger of the females as the Indian runner glided by her unexpectedly and led the way.
Are such spectres frequent in the woods, Hayward? Or is this an especial entertainment ordered on our behalf?
Yon Indian is a runner of the army, and after the fashion of his people, he may be accounted a hero. He has volunteered to guide us to the lake by a path but little known.
I like him not. You know him, Duncan Hayward, or you would not trust yourself so freely to his keeping.
I do know him, or he would not have my confidence, and least of all at this moment. He was brought amongst us, I have heard, by some strange accident in which your father was interested, and in which the savage was rigidly dealt by. But I forget the idle tale. It is enough that he is now our friend.
If he has been my father's enemy, I like him still less. Cora, what think you?
Should we distrust the man because his manners are not our manners, and that his skin is dark?
Alice hesitated. Then, giving her Narragansett a smart cut of the whip, she was the first to dash aside the slight branches and to follow the runner along a dark and tangled pathway. The cavalcade had not long passed before the branches were cautiously moved asunder, and a human visage, as fiercely wild as savage art and unbridled passions could make it, peered out on the retiring footsteps of the travelers. A gleam of exultation shot across his darkly painted lineaments as he traced the route of his intended victims, who rode unconsciously onward. The graceful forms of the females, the manly figure of Hayward, until, finally, the shapeless person of a singing master accompanying the party. A few miles to westward of the place where we have last seen the party, 2 men were lingering on the banks of a small but rapid stream, like those who awaited the appearance of an absent person or the approach of some expected event. While one of these loiterers showed the red skin and wild accoutrements of a native of the woods, the other exhibited, though sunburnt, the complexion of one who might claim descent from a European parentage. His person, though muscular, was rather attenuate than full, but every nerve and muscle appeared strung and indurated by unremitted exposure and toil. A rifle of great length leaned against a neighboring sapling.
Let God judge the matter between us, Chingachgook, and friends spare their words.
Is there no difference, Hawkeye, between the stone-headed arrow of the warrior and the leaden bullet with which you kill?
I am not a prejudiced man, and I am willing to own that my people have many ways of which, as an honest man, I can't approve. But every story has its two sides. So I ask you, Chingachgook, what passed according to the traditions of the red men when our fathers first met?
Listen, Hawkeye, and your ear shall drink no lie. This what my fathers have said, and what the Mohicans have done. The first pale faces who came among us spoke no English. They came in a large canoe when my fathers had buried the tomahawk with the red men around them. Then, Hawkeye, we were one people, and we were happy. The salt lake gave us its fish, the wood its deer, and the air its birds. We took wives who bore us children, and we worshipped the Great Spirit.
Know you anything of your own family at that time?
My tribe is the grandfather of nations, but I am an unmixed man. The blood of chiefs is in my veins, where it must stay forever. When the Dutch landed and gave my people the fire water, they drank until the heavens and the earth seemed to meet, and they foolishly thought they had found the Great Spirit. They then parted with their land, foot by foot. They were driven back from the shores until I, that am a chief and a sagamore, have never seen the sun shine through the trees and have never visited the graves of my fathers.
But where are to be found those of your race who came to the Delaware country so many summers since?
Where are the blossoms of those summers? Fallen one by one. So all of my family departed, each in his turn, to the land of spirits. I am on the hilltop and must go down into the valley. And when Uncas follows in my footsteps, there will no longer be any of the blood of the Sagamores. For my boy is the last of the Mohicans.
Uncas is here. Who speaks to Uncas?
Do the Iroquois dare to leave the print of their moccasins in these woods?
I have been on their trail, and know that they number as the fingers of my two hands. But they lie hid like cowards.
The thieves are out lying for scalps and plunder. That busy Frenchman Montcalm will send his spies into our very camp.
'Tis enough. They shall be driven like deer from their bushes. Hawkeye, let us eat tonight and show the Iroquois that we are men tomorrow.
I am as ready to the one as the other.
I hear the sounds of feet.
The Indian bent his body till his ear nearly touched the earth.
The horses of white men are coming. Hawkeye, they are your brothers. Speak to them.
That will I, and in English, that the king needn't be ashamed to answer. Who comes? Who comes hither among the beasts and dangers of the wilderness?
Believers in religion and friends to the law and to the king. Know you the distance to a post of the crown called William Henry?
Hoot, William Henry, man. You must have lost your eyesight afore losing your way, for the road is as grand a path, I calculate, as any that runs into London.
We trusted to an Indian guide to take us by a nearer path, and we are deceived in his knowledge. In plain words, we know not where we are.
An Indian lost in the woods? 'Tis strange. Is he a Mohawk?
Not by birth, though adopted in that tribe. He is one of those you call a Huron.
Since you trusted yourself to one of that nation, I can only wonder that you've not fallen in with more.
Well, I have told you our guide is now a Mohawk, and that he serves with our forces as a friend.
And I tell you that he who is born a Mingo will die a Mingo.
I wish no contention with you, friend. If you will conduct me to the fort, your labor shall not go without reward.
I wouldn't walk a mile in these woods after night gets into them in company with that runner. They are full of outlying Iroquois, and your mongrel Mohawk knows where to find them.
Think you so? I confess I have not been without my own suspicions. It was because I suspected him that I would follow no longer, making him, as you see, follow me.
Go you back, and hold the imp in talk. These Mohicans here will take him without breaking his paint. Talk openly to the miscreant, and seem to believe him the truest friend you have on earth.
Haywood prepared to comply, though with strong disgust at the nature of the office he was compelled to execute. But the sun had already disappeared, and the wood, suddenly deprived of its light, keenly reminded him that the hour the savage usually chose for his more barbarous and remorseless acts of hostility was speedily drawing near.
You may see, Magua, that the night is closing around us, and yet we are no nearer to William Henry than when we left the encampment. You have missed the way, nor have I been more fortunate. But happily we have fallen in with a hunter who promises to lead us to a place where we may rest securely till the morning.
Is he alone?
Alone? Oh, no, not alone, surely, Magua, for you know that we are with him.
Then Reynard Sutil will go, and the pale-faces will see none but their own color.
Reynard? Whom do you call Le Reynard?
'Tis the name his Canada fathers have given to Magua.
And what account will Le Reynard give the chief of William Henry concerning his daughters? Will he dare to tell the hot-blooded Scotsman Munro that his children are left without a guide?
Oh, the grey-head has a loud voice and a long arm. Le Reynard will not hear him or feel him in the woods.
Enough, Magua. Are we not friends? Rest your weary limbs then and open your wallet to eat.
He paused, for sounds like the snapping of a dried stick and the rustling of leaves rose from the adjacent bushes. Magua's eyes were fastened on the ground, but his head was turned aside. His nostrils expanded. His ears seemed to stand erect.
Le Reynard Sutil does not eat. Let me examine. Perhaps something may be found among my own provisions.
Magua held out his wallet to the proffer of the other, without betraying the least emotion or varying his riveted attention. But suddenly, he struck up the limb of the young man and plunged at a single bound into the opposite thicket. At the next instant, the form of Chingachgook appeared from the bushes, looking like a spectre in its paint, and glided across the path in swift pursuit.
The scoundrel must be concealed behind these trees and may yet be secured. We are not safe while he goes at large.
Is life grievous to you? Yonder red devil would draw you within swing of the tomahawks of his comrades before you were heated in the chase. Come, friends, let us move our station, and in such a fashion, too, as will throw the cunning of a Mingo on a wrong scent, or our scalps will be drying in the wind in front of Montcalm's marquee again this hour tomorrow.
Oh, what is to be done? Oh, desert me not, for God's sake. Remain to defend those I escort, and freely name your own reward.
Spare your offers of money, which neither you may live to realize nor I to profit by. These Mohicans and I will do what man's thoughts can invent to keep from harm such flowers which, though so sweet, were never made for the wilderness. Follow, for we are losing moments that are as precious as heart's blood to a stricken deer.
Where are we? And what is next to be done?
You are at the foot of Glens. Make a steady landing, lest the canoe upset. There, go you all on the rock, and I will bring up the Mohicans with the venison. A man had better sleep without his scalp than famish in the midst of plenty.
It had grown dark. He moved silently by the group of travelers, accompanied by the Mohicans, who seemed to comprehend his intentions with instinctive readiness. Then the whole three disappeared in succession, seeming to vanish against the dark face of a perpendicular rock. Smothered voices were next heard, as though men called to each other in the bowels of the earth, when a sudden light flashed upon those without and laid bare the much-prized secret of the place. At the further extremity of a cavern in the rock was seated the scout, holding a blazing knot of pine. At a little distance stood Uncas, his whole person thrown powerfully into view. The travelers anxiously regarded the upright, flexible figure of the young Mohican, graceful and unrestrained in the attitudes and movements of nature. Though his person was screened by a green and fringed hunting shirt, like that of the white man, there was no concealment of his dark, glancing, fearless eye, alike terrible and calm. The bold outline of his high, haughty features, pure in their native red, or to the dignified elevation of his receding forehead, together with all the finest proportions of a noble head, bared to the generous scalping tuft.
I could sleep in peace with such a fearless and generous-looking youth for my sentinel. Surely, Duncan, those cruel murders, those terrific scenes of torture of which we read and hear so much, are never acted in the presence of such as he.
I agree with you, Alice. But let us not practice a deception upon ourselves by expecting any other exhibition of what we esteem virtue than according to the fashion of a savage. Let us then hope that this Mohican prove what his looks assert him to be, a brave and constant friend.
Now Major Heywood speaks as Major Heywood should. Who that looks at this creature of nature remembers the shade of his skin?
A short and apparently an embarrassed silence succeeded Cora's remark, which was interrupted by the scout calling them to their supper. The moon reached its zenith, and all but Hawkeye and the Mohican lost every idea of consciousness. But the watchfulness of these vigilant protectors neither tired nor slumbered, until a pale streak above the treetops announced the approach of day. Then, for the first time, Hawkeye was seen to stir. He crawled along the rock and shook Duncan from his heavy slumbers.
Now is the time to journey. Awake the gentle ones and be ready to get into the canoe when I bring it to the landing place. Be silent, but be quick. Cora. Alice. Awake. The hour has come to move. Whence comes this?
Has hell broke loose that man should utter sounds like these?
The Mohicans boldly sent back the intimidating yell of their enemies, who raised a shout of savage triumph. The flash of rifles was then quick and close between them, but either party was too well skilled to leave even a limb exposed to the hostile aim. Hawkeye had found a victim. At this, the assailants withdrew.
You know not the nature of an Iroquois if you think he's so easily beaten back without a scalp. They know our number and quality too well to give up the chase so soon.
4 savages sprang from the cover of the driftwood. The rifle of Hawkeye rose among the shrubs and poured out its fatal contents. The foremost Indian bounded like a stricken deer and fell headlong.
Now, Uncas, take the last of the screeching imps. Of the other 2, we are certain.
Hawkeye encountered a savage of gigantic stature. At the same moment, Heywood found himself engaged with the other, hand to hand. His adversary's knife fell on the rock at their feet. It became a fierce struggle who would cast the other over the dizzy height into the neighboring cavern of the falls. Both tottered on the brink of the precipice. Heywood felt his body slowly yielding to a resistless power. But a dark hand and glancing knife appeared before him. The Indian released his hold. Heywood was drawn backward by the saving arm of Uncas, his eyes still riveted on the fierce and disappointed countenance of his foe, who fell down the irrecoverable precipice.
To cover! To cover for your life! The work is but half-ended! Uncas, man, go down to the canoe and bring up the big horn. It is all the powder we have left, and we shall need it for the last grain.
The young Mohican complied, leaving the scout turning over the useless contents of his pouch and shaking the empty horn. But a loud and piercing exclamation from Uncas sounded some new and unexpected calamity. Together, Heywood and Hawkeye rushed down the pass to the chasm with a rapidity that rendered the scattering fire of their enemies harmless. The unwonted cry had brought the sisters and the singing master from their place of refuge, and the whole party, at a single glance, saw the disaster. Their little bark was floating across the eddy.
Well, you may laugh, you children of the devil, for the 3 quickest and truest rifles in these woods are no better than the last year's horns of a buck.
Surely we may make good the caverns. We may oppose their landing.
With what? The arrows of Uncas or such tears as women shed? No, you are young and rich and have friends. And at such an age, I know it is hard to die, but let us teach these natives of the forest that white blood can run as freely as red. Chingachgook, my brother, we have fought our last battle together.
Let them draw the sharpest knife and whirl the swiftest tomahawk, for their bitterest enemy is in their hands. Uncas, topmost branch of a noble trunk, call on the cowards to hasten, or their hearts will soften and they will change to women.
Aye, they'll soon provoke the Iroquois to give them a speedy end.
Why die at all? The path is open on every side. Fly then to the woods and call on God for succor.
You but little know the craft of the Iroquois, lady, if you judge they have left the path open to the woods. The downstream current might sweep us beyond the reach of their rifles, but...
Then try the river. Why linger? To add to the number of the victims of our merciless enemies?
What answer could we give Monroe when he asked us when and how we left his children?
Go to him and say that you left them with a message to hasten to their aid, that the Hurons bear them into the northern wilds, but that by vigilance and speed they may yet be rescued. If it please heaven that assistance come too late, bear to him the love, the blessings, the final prayers of his daughters.
Chingachgook, Uncres, hear you the talk of the dark-eyed woman?
Now he spoke in Delaware to his companions. The elder Mohican heard him with deep gravity. After a moment of hesitation, he waved his hand in assent. Then he moved silently to the edge of the rock, and saying a few words in his own language, he dropped into the water.
If you are led into the woods, such of you as may be spared for a while, break the twigs on the bushes as you pass, and make the marks of your trail as broad as you can. If mortal eyes can see them, depend on having a friend who will follow to the ends of the earth before he deserts you.
He gave Cora an affectionate shake of the hand, and descended to the place where Chingachgook had disappeared. The water closed above his head, and he also became lost to view. All eyes were now turned on Uncas.
Is it not time for you to follow?
Uncas will stay.
Go, generous young man, go to my father. 'Tis my wish, 'tis my prayer that you will go.
The calm look of the young chief changed to an expression of gloom, but he no longer hesitated. With a noiseless step, he crossed the rock and dropped into the troubled stream.
I have heard of your skill in the water too, Duncan. Follow, then, these simple and faithful beings.
Is such the faith that Cora Monroe would exact from her protector?
To us you can be of no further service here. Consider that the worst to us can be but death.
There are evils worse than death, which the presence of one who would die in your behalf may avert.
Cora ceased her entreaties, and veiling her face in her shawl, drew the nearly insensible Alice after her into the deepest recess of the cavern.
O God, our help in ages past, our hope for years to come, our shelter from the
voice of the singing master filled the narrow vault. He was exerting his powers to their utmost, when his heart literally bounded into the passage of his throat. Alice's lips moved, but the words they should have uttered appeared frozen by some new and sudden chill. Her bloom gave place to the paleness of death. Her soft and melting eyes grew hard and seemed contracting with horror. Heywood turned. Just above the ledge which formed the threshold, he beheld the malignant, fierce, and savage features of Le Renard Subtil. The feeble barrier of brush was scattered to the winds. They were dragged from their shelter and borne into the day, where they stood, surrounded by the whole band of the triumphant Hurons. Heywood advanced towards him.
Go to the dark-haired daughter, and say Magua waits to speak. The father will remember what the child promises.
What would Lorena say to the daughter of Monroe?
Listen, Magua was born a chief and a warrior among the red Hurons of the lakes. He saw the suns of 20 summers make the snows of 20 winters run off in the streams before he saw a pale face, and he was happy. Then his Canada fathers came into the woods and taught him to drink the far water. The Hurons drove him from the graves of his fathers as they would chase the hunted buffalo. The chief, who was born a Huron, was at last a warrior among the Mohawks. Who gave him the far water? Who made him a villain? 'Twas the pale faces, the people of your own color.
And am I answerable that thoughtless and unprincipled men exist?
Listen, the old chief at Huracan, your father, was the great captain of our war party. He said to the Mohawks, do this and do that. He made a law that if an Indian swallowed the far water and came into the cloth wigwams of his warriors, it should not be forgotten. Magua foolishly opened his mouth, and the hot liquor led him into the cabin of Monroe. What did the gray-head let his daughter say?
He forgot not his words, and did justice by punishing the offender.
Justice? Is it justice to make evil and then punish for it? Magua was not himself. It was the firewater that spoke and acted for him, but Monroe did not believe it. The Huron chief was tied up before all the pale-faced warriors and whipped like a dog. When he felt the blows of Monroe, his spirit lay under the birch. The spirit of a Huron is never drunk. It remembers forever.
If my father has done you this injustice, show him how an Indian can forgive an injury and take back his daughters. What would you have?
What a Huron loves. Good for good, bad for bad.
Would it not be more like a man to go before his face and take the satisfaction of a warrior?
Why should Le Renard go among the muskets of his warriors when he holds the spirit of the grey head in his hand?
At least release my gentle sister and pour out all your malice on me.
The light eyes can go back to the Hurricane if the dark-haired woman will swear by the great spirit of her fathers to tell no lie.
What must I promise?
When Magua left his people, his wife was given to another chief. He has now made friends with the Hurons and will go back to the graves of his tribe on the shores of the Great Lake. Let the daughter of the English chief follow and live in his wigwam forever.
What pleasure would Magua find in sharing his cabin with a wife he did not love? It would be better to take the gold of Monroe and buy the heart of some Huron maid with his gifts.
When the blows scorched the back of the Huron, he would know where to find a woman to feel the smart. The daughter of Monroe would draw his water, hoe his corn, and cook his venison. The body of the greyhead would sleep among his cannon, but his heart would lie within reach of the knife of La Soutine.
Monster! You shall find it is, in truth, the heart of Monroe you hold, and that it will defy your utmost malice.
The Indian answered his bold defiance by a ghastly smile that showed his unaltered purpose, while he motioned her away, as if to close the conference forever. The months which followed were to bring their malignant fortunes ever closer. We may imagine with what alternation of joy and horror the sisters saw themselves rescued by the scout and his Mohican friends, only to be abducted once more by Magua's red horde upon the fall of their father's fort at Montcalm. They had vanished into the wilderness without a trace. The third day from the capture of the fort, about an hour before the setting of the sun, the forms of 5 men might have been seen issuing from the trees where the path to the Hudson entered the forest. It was, in truth, the Mohicans and their white friend, the scout, together with Haywood and Monroe, the father, in quest of his children.
What is it, boy?
Uncas, without making any reply, bounded away from the spot, and the next instant he was seen tearing from a bush and waving in triumph a fragment of the green riding veil of Alice.
My child. Give me my child.
Uncas will try.
Softly, softly. We now know our work, but the beauty of the trail must not be deformed. A step too soon may give us hours of trouble. We have them, though. That much is beyond denial.
Proceeding in this slow and cautious manner by foot and canoe, the party after some days landed on the border of a region that is, even to this day, less known than the deserts of Arabia. But Hawkeye and the Mohicans had often traversed this vast wilderness, and they did not hesitate to plunge into its depths. After proceeding a few miles, the progress of Hawkeye, who led the advance, became more deliberate and watchful.
They were following the valleys north until they might strike the Canada streams into the country of the Frenchers. Yet here are we, and not a sign of a trail have we crossed. Human nature is weak, and it is possible we may not have taken the proper scent.
Heaven protect us from such an error. Has Uncas no counsel to offer?
The young Mohican cast a glance at his father. Chingachgook caught the look and motioned with his hand. The countenance of Uncas changed from its grave composure to a gleam of intelligence and joy. Bounding forward like a deer, he sprang up the side of the little acclivity and stood exultingly over a spot of fresh earth.
'Tis the trail.
That he should have withheld his knowledge so long.
It would have been more wonderful had he spoken without a bidding.
See! The dark hair has gone toward the frost.
Aye, here are both your waddling beasts. This Huron travels like a white general.
Before an hour had elapsed, however, the speed of Hawkeye sensibly abated, and his head began to turn suspiciously from side to side. He soon stopped again, and waited for the whole party to come up.
I sent the Hurons. Yonder is open sky through the treetops, and we're getting too nigh their encampment. Sagamore, you will take the hillside to the right. Uncas will bend along the brook to the left, while I will try the trail.
Haywood pressed to the side of their guide, eager to catch an early sight of those enemies. His companion told him to steal to the edge of the wood and wait his coming. Haywood obeyed, and found himself within 100 yards of a stranger Indian. The scout stole silently and cautiously to his side.
The imp is not a Huron, nor of any of the Canada tribes. And yet you see by his clothes the knave has been plundering a white.
In the next moment the scout was concealed by the leaves. Then he reappeared, creeping along the earth, directly in the rear of his intended captive. He arose to his creeping feet, silently and slowly. But without any apparent reason, he withdrew his uplifted hand and indulged in a silent fit of merriment. Instead of grasping his victim by the throat, he tapped him lightly on the shoulder.
Anna, friend, have you a mind to teach the beavers to sing?
Hawkeye. Duncan.
We may better imagine than describe the surprise of Haywood. His suspected enemy was suddenly converted into David Gammott, the singing master.
Tell us, what has become of the maidens?
They are captives to the heathen, and though greatly troubled in spirit, enjoying comfort and safety in the body.
Both?
Even so. The older maiden is conveyed to a neighboring people, while the younger is detained among the women of the Hurons, 2 short miles hence on a tableland.
Alice, my gentle Alice. She has lost the consolation of her sister's presence.
Even so.
And why are you permitted to go at large, unwatched?
Little be the praise to such a worm as I. But though the power of psalmody in me was suspended, it has recovered its influence even over the souls of the heathen, and I am suffered to go and come at will.
The Indians never harm a non-compasser.
I know little of the tribe to which Cora has been sent, only that, like the Hurons themselves, they are allies to Montcalm, and I've seen strange and fantastic images drawn in their paint, especially one, a foul and loathsome object. It was in the likeness of a creeping tortoise.
Haywood knew that the animal just mentioned was faintly worked in a blue tint on the swarthy breast of the Mohican chief. All that he had ever heard of the violent separation of the vast tribes of the Delaware rushed across his mind.
We have found that which may be good or evil to us as heaven disposes. The Sagamore is of the high blood of the Delawares, and is the great chief of their tortoises. But long ago, the tomahawk of brother was turned against brother, and brought Mingo and Delaware to travel in the same path. It would be well to let this man go in again, as usual.
I will accompany him.
Are you tired of seeing the sun rise and set?
David is proof that the Hurons can be merciful.
Aye, but David can use his throat.
I can play the madman, the fool. Anything to rescue her I love. You have the means of disguise. Change me. Paint me too, if you will. Alter me to anything. A fool.
Hawkeye spoke apart with Chingachgook. The Mohican chief nodded, and drew with great dexterity upon Hayward's face the fantastic shadow that the natives considered as the evidence of a jocular disposition, of a buffoon. With Hayward's knowledge of French, he might pass for a juggler of the Ticonderoga, straggling among the allied and friendly tribes. Hayward wandered among the lodges, unquestioned and unnoticed in the twilight, when a line of warriors issued from the woods and advanced towards the dwellings. One of their number now called aloud, and the whole encampment in a moment became a scene of the most violent commotion. A little in advance stood a man, who was apparently selected from the rest as the principal actor in what was to follow. Hayward drew nigher to the swarthy lines of the Hurons and scarcely breathed. Just then the signal yell was given, and the momentary quiet was broken by a burst of cries. The victim bounded with the swiftness of a deer. Nothing could be distinguished but a dark mass of human forms. Arms, gleaming knives, and formidable clubs appeared above them. The stranger reappeared. Human power could not much longer endure so severe a trial. Profiting by a momentary opening, he darted from among the warriors. A tall and powerful Huron pressed close upon his heels, and with an uplifted arm menaced a fatal blow. Hayward thrust forth a foot, and the eager savage fell headlong, many feet in advance of his intended victim. The latter turned, gleamed like a meteor, and at the next moment, when Hayward gazed round in quest of him, he saw him quietly leaning against a small painted post, now protected by immemorial and sacred usage, until the tribe in council had deliberated and determined his fate. It was not difficult, however, to foretell the result. The captive turned his face toward the light, and Hayward exchanged glances with the firm and piercing eyes of Uncas. Hayward, now more anxious for Alice than before, continued to stray from hut to hut, looking into each, only to encounter additional disappointment. He resolved to seek and question David. Without seeming to hesitate, he walked into the lodge with a gravity that accorded admirably with the deportment of his hosts. He had not long occupied a seat, wisely taken a little in the shade, when one of the older warriors, who spoke the French language, addressed him.
My Canada father does not forget his children. I thank him. An evil spirit lives in the wife of one of my young men. Can the cunning stranger frighten him away?
Spirits differ. Some yield to the power of wisdom, while others are too strong.
My brother is great medicine. He will try.
A gesture of assent was the answer. A motion of a finger was the intimation the chief gave the supposed physician to follow, and passing through the clouds of smoke, he turned aside and proceeded directly towards the base of an adjacent mountain. The blaze of a fire lighted the way and gave additional wildness to the scenery. Just then, a dark and mysterious-looking being arose in their path. Coming near, it was seen by its restless and idling attitudes to be a bear. The Huron at least seemed assured that the intentions of the intruder were peaceable, and he quietly pursued his course. But Hayward's uneasiness was in no way diminished when he perceived the beast was following their footsteps. He would have spoken, but the Indian at that moment shoved aside a door of bark and entered a cavern in the bosom of the mountain. The young man pressed forward, keeping as close as possible to his conductor. The bear growled frequently at his heels, and once or twice its enormous paws were laid on his person. Hither the sick woman, who was believed to be the victim of supernatural power, had been transported, under an impression that her tormentor would find more difficulty in making his assaults through walls of stone. A single look was sufficient to appraise Hayward that she was far beyond his powers of healing. The chief beckoned away the whole group of female attendants that clustered there.
Now let my brother show his power. The cunning ones are jealous. I go. Brother, deal justly by her. Peace, I go.
Haywood now found himself with the helpless invalid and the fierce and dangerous brute. It seemed, however, as if the humor of the animal had suddenly changed. Instead of continuing its growls or any further signs of anger, the whole of its shaggy body shook violently. The huge and unwieldy talons pawed stupidly about the grinning muzzle, and while Haywood kept his eyes riveted on its movements, the grim head fell on one side, and in its place appeared the honest, sturdy countenance of the scout.
What? Shh. Shh. The violets are about the place, and any sounds that are not natural to witchcraft would bring them back upon us in a body.
Well, tell me the meaning of this masquerade.
After the loss of the boy, I got in pretty nigh to the lodges without further commotion. Then what should luck do in my favor but lead me to the spot where the conjurer of the tribe was dressing himself? So, a judgmatical rap over the head stiffened the lying impostor for a time. I made free with his finery and took the part of the bear on myself. But our work is yet before us. Where is the gentle one, think you?
Oh, heaven knows. I've examined every lodge in the village.
Here, there are honeypots hidden in these rocks. She is here, and by that door you will find her. But the sight of such a monster might upset her reason.
Am I then so very revolting?
I have seen the time when you had a better favored look.
In a moment, every frightful or offensive mark was obliterated, and thus prepared, he disappeared through the indicated passage. Haywood had no other guide than a distant glimmering light, which served, however, the office of a polar star to the lover, and by its aid he was enabled to enter the haven of his hopes.
Duncan.
Alice!
I knew that you would never desert me, but you are alone.
She trembled in a manner which betrayed her inability to stand. Haywood gently induced her to be seated while he recounted his tale. He was interrupted by a light tap on his shoulder. He turned, and his looks fell on the dark form and malignant visage of Magua.
The pale faces trap the cunning beavers, but the redskins know how to take the Yankees.
Huron, do your worst. You and your vengeance are alike despised.
Will the white man speak these words at the stake?
Singly to your face or in the presence of your nation.
When Arasitil will go and bring him young men to see how bravely a pale-face can laugh at the tortures.
The figure of the bear appeared in the door, rolling from side to side. Magua was far above the vulgar superstitions of his tribe, and so soon as he recognized the well-known attire of the conjurer, he prepared to pass it.
Go play with the children and squaws. Leave men to their wisdom.
The beast extended its arms, or rather legs, and enclosed him in a grasp that might have vied with the power of the bear hug itself. Haywood caught up a thong of buckskin, and when he beheld his enemy with his arms pinned to his side, he rushed upon him. When the formidable Huron was completely pinioned, the scout released his hold, and Haywood laid his enemy on his back, utterly helpless.
Bring the gentle one. We must make a push for the woods.
What is impossible? Fear has overcome us. She's helpless.
There, wrap her in them Indian cloths. Every part. Now, take her in your arms and follow. Leave the rest to me.
As they approached the little door of bark, a murmur of voices without announced that the friends and relatives of the invalid were gathered, patiently awaiting a summons to re-enter. Haywood stepped forward.
Has my brother driven away the evil spirit? What has he in his arms?
Thy child. The disease has gone out of her. It is shut up in the rocks. I take the woman to a distance where I will strengthen her. She shall be in the wigwam of the young man when the sun comes again. Let my children wait here, and if the spirit appears, beat him down with clubs.
This path will lead you to the brook. Follow its northern bank, and you will see the fires of the other people. Demand protection. If they are true Delawares, you will be safe. Go, and Providence be with you.
And you?
Surely we part not here.
The Hurons hold the pride of the Delawares. The last of the high blood of the Mohicans is in their power. I shall find a ruse to free him too.
And true to his word, Hawkeye rescued Uncas and fled with him to the Delaware camp, hoping to find safety there. Magua had early discovered that in retaining the person of Alice, he possessed the most effectual check on Cora, consigning the one he most valued to the keeping of their allies. But the arrangement was understood to be merely temporary, and was made as much with a view to flatter his neighbors as an obedience to the invariable rule of Indian policy. But while he was making this ostensible sacrifice, Magua never lost sight of his individual motive. And now this had been frustrated. All his prisoners were beyond his control. At dawn the next day, with great solemnity, Magua entered the encampment of the Delawares.
The wise Huron is welcome. He is come to eat his succotash with his brothers of the lakes.
He is come. Does my prisoner give trouble to my brothers?
She is welcome.
The Hurons love their friends, the Delawares. The Redskins should be friends, and look with open eyes on the white men. Has not my brother scented spies in the woods?
The stranger is always welcome to the children of the Lenape.
The stranger, but not the spy. Will my Canada father be pleased when he hears that his enemy is fled in the camp of his children? When he is told a bloody Yankee smokes at your fire, that the paleface who has slain so many of his friends goes in and out among the Delawares?
Where is the Yankee that the Delawares fear? Who has slain my young men?
La Longue Carabine.
What does my brother mean?
A Huron never lies. Let the Delawares find one whose skin is neither red nor pale.
Messengers were dispatched to collect the tribe in a solemn and formal assemblage of the nation. The subtle Huron, who still sat apart, now knew that all his projects must be brought to their final issue. The warriors were already beginning to collect. It might have been half an hour before each individual, even the women and children, was in his place. The number of the multitude exceeded 1,000 souls. At length the whole nation arose to their feet by a common impulse. At that instant, 3 men issued from a lodge. They were all aged, but the one in the center, who leaned on his companions for support, had numbered an amount of years to which the human race is seldom permitted to attain. It was Tamenund. He seated himself in the center of his nation, with the dignity of a monarch and the air of a father. Cora stood foremost, entwining her arms in those of Alice. Close at her side stood Hayward. Hawkeye had placed himself a little in the rear. Uncas was not there.
Brother, the Delawares listen.
The Huron arose. On Hawkeye he cast a glance of respectful enmity. On Duncan, a look of inextinguishable hatred. Alice he scarcely deigned to notice, but when his glance met the commanding and yet lovely form of Cora, his eye lingered. Then, filled with his own dark intentions, he recounted to the Delawares their past traditions, their injuries, their ancient greatness, their deeds, their glory, their happiness, their losses, their defeats, their misery.
But why should I, a Huron of the woods, tell a wise people their own traditions? I have done. My tongue is still, for my heart is of lead. I listen.
Who calls upon the children of the Lenape? Who speaks of things gone? Does not the egg become a worm, the worm a fly, and perish? Why tell the Delawares of good that is past? Better thank the Manitou for that which remains.
It is a Wyandot, a friend of Tamenund.
A friend? Are the Mingos rulers of the earth? What brings a Huron here?
Justice. His prisoners are with his brothers, and he comes for his own.
Justice is the law of the great Manitou. My children, give the stranger food. Then, Huron, take thine own and depart.
The words were barely uttered when 4 or 5 of the younger warriors, stepping behind Hayward and the scout, passed thongs around their arms so as to hold them both in instant bondage. Cora rushed to the feet of the patriarch.
Just and venerable Delaware, on thy wisdom and power we lean for mercy. Be deaf to yonder artful and remorseless monster who poisons thy ears with falsehoods to feed his thirst for blood.
What art thou?
One of a hated race, if thou wilt, a Yengi, but one who has never harmed thee, and who cannot harm thy people if she would, who asks for succor. There's yet one of thine own people who has not been brought before thee. Hear him speak.
It is a snake, a redskin in the pay of the Yengeese. We keep him for the torture.
Let him come.
The waving multitude opened and shut again, and Uncas stood in the living circle.
With what tongue does the prisoner speak to the Manitou?
Like his fathers, with the tongue of a Delaware.
Delaware, little art thou worthy of thy name. My people have not seen a bright sun in many winters, and the warrior who deserts his tribe when hid in clouds is doubly a traitor. He is thine, my children. Deal justly by him.
Screams of delight mingled with the bustle and tumult of preparation. Uncas had alone preserved his serenity. And when the tormentors came to seize him, he met them with a firm and upright attitude. One among them seized the hunting shirt of the young warrior, and a single effort tore it from his body. But at that moment, the purpose of the savage was arrested, as if a supernatural agency had interposed. His companions crowded about him in wonder, and every eye was fastened intently on the figure of a small tortoise, beautifully tattooed on the breast of the prisoner in a bright blue tint. Uncas, motioning the crowd away with a high and haughty sweep of his arm, advanced in front of the nation with the air of a king.
Men of the Lenape, my race upholds the earth. Your feeble tribe stands on my shell. My race is the grandfather of nations.
Who art thou?
Uncas, the son of Chingachgook, a son of the great turtle.
I thank the Manitou that one is here to fill my place at the council fire. Uncas, the child of Uncas, is found. Our wise men have often said that 2 warriors of the unchanged race were in the hills of the Yengeese. Why have their seats at the council fires been so long empty?
Once we slept where we could hear the salt lake speak in its anger. Then we were rulers and sagamores over the land. But when a pale-face was seen on every brook, we followed the deer back to the river of our nation. The Delawares were gone. Then said my fathers, here will we hunt. The waters of the river go into the salt lake. When the Manitou is ready and shall say, come, we will follow the river to the sea and take our own again. Such Delawares is the belief of the children of the turtle.
He made way for himself to the side of Hawkeye and led him to the feet of the patriarch.
Father, look at this pale-face. A just man and a friend of the Delawares.
The pale-face has slain my young men. His name is great for the blows he has struck the Lenape.
If a Mingo has whispered that much in the ear of the Delaware, he has only shown that he is a singing bird. That knowingly my hand has ever harmed a Delaware is opposed to the reason of my gifts, which is friendly to them and all that belongs to their nation.
A just commandant will not keep what a Huron has lent.
Tell me, son of my brother, has Magua a conqueror's right over you?
None.
Lalonde Carabine?
Laughs at the Mingos, Go, Huron, ask your squaws the color of a bear.
The stranger and the yellow-haired maiden?
Should journey on an open path.
And the woman that the Huron left with my warriors?
She is mine. Mohican, you know that she is mine.
My son is silent.
It is so.
Girl, what wouldst thou? A great warrior takes thee to wife. Go. Thy race will not end.
Better 1,000 times it should than meet with such a degradation.
Huron, an unwilling maiden makes an unhappy wigwam.
She speaks with the tongue of her people. She is of a race of traders, and will bargain for a bright look.
Take you the wampum, and our love.
Nothing hence but what Magua brought hither.
Then depart with thine own. The great Manitou forbids that a Delaware should be unjust.
Can this be suffered? To you, just Tamenund, I appeal for mercy.
The words of the Delaware are said.
Aye, go. Go, Magua, go. These Delawares have their laws which forbid them to detain you, but I have no such obligation.
The woods are open. The open hand can come.
Huron, look at the sun. He is now in the upper branches of the hemlock. When he is seen above the trees, there will be men on your trail.
Oh, where are the petticoats of the Delawares? Dogs, rabbits, thieves, I spit on you.
The triumphant Magua passed unmolested into the forest, followed by his passive captive, and protected for a time by the inviolable laws.
We're likely to have a good day for a fight. I feared something like this. To cover, men, and charge! There speaks the Sagamore. We have him now and facing back. Ah, Chingachgook!
At last, the fight is coming up your scent.
A Delaware, leaping high in the air like a wounded deer, fell at his whole length, perfectly dead. The charge in that rude species of warfare consisted merely in pushing from cover to cover, nigher to the enemy. And in this maneuver, Hawkeye was instantly and successfully obeyed. Rapidly, the battle in the forest rolled upward toward the Huron village. At that instant, Uncas issued from the forest, at the head of 100 warriors. Waving his hands right and left, the young chief pointed out the enemy, the broken Hurons hotly pressed by the victorious warriors of the Lenape. One little knot of Hurons, however, had disdained to seek a cover, and were retiring, Magua conspicuous among them, like lions at bay. Uncas bounded forward in pursuit, Hawkeye and Hayward still pressing on his footsteps. Magua leaped into a thicket of bushes, still followed by his enemies, and suddenly entered the mouth of the cave adjacent to the Huron camp.
Ha! We're certain of our game.
But their way was becoming intricate in those dark and gloomy passages, and the glimpses of the retiring warriors less distinct and frequent. For a moment the trace was believed to be lost, when a white robe was seen fluttering in the further extremity of the passage that seemed to lead up the mountain.
'Tis Cora! Cora! Cora!
'Tis the maiden! Courage, lady! We come! We come! We must close. The knaves will pick us all up at this distance, and see to hold the maidens so as to shield themselves.
Stay, daughter of Wyandots!
I will go no further. Kill me if thou wilt, detestable Huron. I will go no further.
Woman, choose. They will go on with a knife of the city.
Cora dropped to her knees, raised her eyes, and stretched her arms toward heaven.
I am thine. Do with me as thou seest best.
Woman, choose.
But Cora neither heard nor heeded. The form of the Huron trembled, and he raised his arm on high, but dropped it again with a bewildered air. Once more he struggled with himself and lifted the keen weapon again. But just then a piercing cry was heard above them. Uncas appeared, leaping from a fearful height upon the ledge. Magua recoiled a step, and one of his warriors, profiting by the chance, sheathed his own knife in the bosom of Cora. The Huron sprang like a tiger on his offending countryman, but the falling form of Uncas separated the combatants. Diverted from his object and maddened by the murder he had witnessed, Magua buried his weapon in the back of the prostrate Delaware.
Mercy! Mercy, Huron! Give mercy and thou shalt receive it!
But when they reached the scene of the massacre, the ledge was tenanted only by the dead. Magua had leaped a wide fissure and ascended the rocks. A single bound would now carry him to the brow of the precipice and assure his safety. Before taking the leap, however, the Huron paused and shook his hand at the scout.
The pale faces are dogs, the Delawares women. Magua leaves them on the rocks for the crows.
He made a desperate leap and fell short of his mark. His hands grasped a shrub on the verge. The surrounding rocks themselves were not steadier than the weapon Hawkeye raised to his shoulder. Magua, turning a relentless look on his enemy, shook a hand in grim defiance, but his hold loosened, and his dark person was seen cutting the air with its head downward in its rapid flight to destruction. 6 Delaware girls strewed sweet-scented herbs and forest flowers on a litter of fragrant plants that under a pall of Indian robes supported all that now remained of the ardent, high-souled, and generous Cora. At her feet was seated the desolate Munro. Hayward was also nigh, endeavoring to keep down those sudden risings of sorrow that it required his utmost manhood to subdue. But sad and melancholy as this group may be imagined, it was far less touching than another nearby. Seated, as in life, with his form and limbs arranged in grave composure, Uncas appeared, arrayed in the most gorgeous ornaments that the wealth of the tribe could furnish. Directly in front of the corpse sat Chingachgook, without arms, paint, or adornment of any sort, except the bright blue blazonry of his race on his naked torso. The scout was hard by, leaning on his own fatal and avenging weapon, while Tamenund, supported by the elders of his nation, looked down on the mute and sorrowful assemblage of his people. When the closing cadence had fallen, the secret, timorous glances of the assemblage betrayed that something was expected from the father of the deceased. Chingachgook looked about him with a steady eye.
Why do my brothers mourn? Why do my daughters weep? That a young man has gone to the happy hunting grounds, that a chief has filled his time with honor. He was good, he was dutiful, he was brave. The Manitou had need of such a warrior, and he has called him away. As for me, the son and the father of Uncas, I am a blazed pine in a clearing of the palefaces. I am alone.
No, Sagamore, not alone. The gifts of our colors may be different, but God has so placed us as to journey in the same path. I have no kin, and I may also say, like you, no people. The boy has left us for a time, but Sagamore, you are not alone.
Chingachgook grasped the hand that in the warmth of feeling the scout had stretched across the fresh earth dug for the grave of Uncas. And in that attitude of friendship, these 2 sturdy and intrepid woodsmen bowed their heads together.
It is enough. Go, children of the Lenape. The anger of the Manitou is not done. Why should Tamenund stay? The pale-faces are masters of the earth, and the time of the red man has not yet come again. My day has been too long. In the morning I saw the sons of the turtle happy and strong, and yet before the night has come have I lived to see the last warrior, the wise race